How you doing, guys? Big Mac Dam School here again today, back once again with another episode in my Warhammer 40,000 Conquest series for you. Today, we'll be taking a look through the pages of issue 43. Ooh, it's getting hot in here with all these Thermic Plasma Regulators around. So first of all, as always, I'd like to discuss what we get in this week's issue. Well, we get the Thermic Plasma Regulators. That are the bits of terrain, lovely bits of terrain for the battlefield. These are the first two bits of terrain in this block of 20 issues, from issue 40 to issue 59. And they just add another dimension, literally and figuratively, to your games. So they're a lovely little kit, and they cost £15 in total from Games Workshop. You don't divide that by two. You get two little bits of terrain, but you don't divide it by two. You get them both in this issue, which means you're saving about £7 and a penny, or exactly £7 and a penny, I should say, which is a great saving considering it's almost half the price of the kit itself. On the front cover, we've got Thermic Plasma Regulators, Beasts of Nergal, and Armies of the Imperium. Let's turn on to the first page and take a look. We've got successor chapters. So, this issue is a little bit all over the place. It goes from one thing to another thing to the next thing within the lore and within the 40k universe. So it talks about, in this case, Blood Angels successor chapters. We've seen definitely some Ultramarine successor chapters. I feel like we might have seen some Dark Angels ones as well, but I can't remember for sure. But in this case, in this instance, we're getting some Blood Angels successors. A few notable ones are the Flesh Tearers, my personal favourite Blood Angels successor chapter. The Flesh Tearers are so raw, so angry in battle that even other Imperial Forces are reluctant to ally with them. They see them storming onto the field of battle and getting slaughtering their opponents, and there's they take such joy in the slaughter that they're almost like on the verge of almost like cornate levels of joy when they're taking part in the slaughter, and they're particularly brutal. They're in a 30k era, the closest legion to what the Flesh Tearers are now would probably be the World Eaters, who are corn worshippers now. So that's why I make that comparison. So the Flesh Tearers are, all up in your face, like most Blood Angels and like the Blood Angels themselves and the Blood Angels successor chapters. Most of them are all about the slaughter, the close assaults. And then another notable one to pick out are the Primaris chapter, the Knights of the Chalice. So they're a new chapter that have come into force and come into use in the Indomitus Crusade. They were first deployed in the Indomitus Crusade, so when Rabute Gilliman was first reawoken. Talks more about that in this issue as well. Next page though, onto the next page, we've got the Beasts of Nergal. The Beasts of Nergal are like the puppy dogs of Nergal, and they take great joy in playing. But the thing is, play to them might not be play to you. They'll see someone on the battlefield and they just run towards them. It doesn't matter if it's friend or foe. They run towards them and try to start playing with them, so they start licking them, kissing them, rolling around with them and on them. And then before you know it, they've crushed them, and they've killed what they thought was a plaything. And then they move on to the next one, the guy next to them, or the next unit, something like that. And even the Death Guard themselves don't like using these Beasts of Nergal, but when they do use them, they normally send a vehicle off, racing off into the distance, and the Beasts of Nergal chase after these vehicles, and then they plough it through the enemy's lines, and they use the Beasts of Nergal to sort of break the lines of the enemy. So it's a really a tactical use of what essentially is like a big child or a puppy that's just looking to play, but plays a bit rougher than the average child or puppy. So on to the next page, we've got Armies of the Imperium. Like I said, this issue is a little bit all over the place. A lot of the issues are, though, to be fair, because the stuff in the magazine isn't designed to be read this way, as the pages in the magazine deliver it. It's designed to be, the pages all to be separated and put into the folder, the binder that we get, or the subscribers get. Anyway, I've not got one. I'm not a subscriber. So anyway, Armies of the Imperium. It talks about Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, the Adeptus Astra Militarum, otherwise known as the Imperial Guard, the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Grey Knights. They're all mentioned and pictured in these pictures here. And then on the bottom it talks about war, invasion, chaos, corruption and betrayal. There are many threats to the continued existence of the Imperium. And over the course of the next couple of pages it talks about how the Imperium can join forces, and onto the picture on the next page as well. It gives you a little example of some of the Imperial forces joined against the enemies of the Imperium. In this instance, they're facing off against the Black Legion. There's some Night Lords in there as well, by the looks of it. So it's 2 allied forces fighting each other, really, or 5 allied forces fighting each other. Maybe separate it into the factions. So what can we see in this picture? There's a little hint of an Imperial Knight there, of House Crest, I want to say. I could be wrong there. It's a Mechanicum aligned house, so that's Imperial Knights, but it's also sort of Mechanicum. And then you've got all the tanks, so the Astra Militaire and the Imperial Guard. We've got a Dark Angels Rhino in there, a small detachment of Dark Angels. The veterans, just looks like the standard Dark Angel line troops. Then we've got a couple of Sisters of Battle tanks there. The Adeptus Sororitas is their other name. And I'm sure I saw something else. No, that might be it actually. So it's 4 Imperial forces, separate Imperial forces, unless you can spot any others behind me. 4 separate Imperial forces against at least 2 different types of Chaos forces there. So it's all it gives you an idea of war on a big scale. What's interesting about this picture as well, and the release of this week's magazine having this information, is Apocalypse is up for pre-order at the end of this week, so most people collecting this magazine won't even be thinking about playing Apocalypse yet, but playing battles on a completely different scale with all the forces you have. You might want to take your Imperial Knights, if you've got them, ally them with your Imperial Guard like they do in this picture. If you've got a Sisters of Battle force, bring them along with your Space Marine force, and then 2,000 points is around about a good sized battle of Warhammer 40,000, but if you want to take it to the next level and you've got 2 forces of 2,000 points, why not join them together and play a game of Apocalypse? Like I said, there's more information on the website, but it's going to be up for pre-order this Saturday, I think, the 29th of July. So that's I just thought I'd point that out, as this coincides with that release. I don't think they've timed it to be like that, although they could have just timed it like that, but it's me assuming they're not that clever. But on to the next page. Hope Rekindled. What's this? 40k Histories 9. This is a couple of pages talking about the reawakening of Robute Guilliman, and how a lot of Imperial forces were all set up on Cadia, trying to defend the Kaidan Gate from the invasion of the Black Legion and the mass forces of Chaos and the Chaos Space Marines. And the circumstances were dire, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a force of Eldari or Inari were... that's the Eldar, basically, the Eldar race. They sort of appeared out of nowhere to aid the Imperial forces and help them escape their pursuers, the Chaos forces. And then they made their way to Macragge, which was also under siege by the Death Guard, I think, actually. And the allied Imperial and Eldar forces made the way to the Fortress of Hera, I think it is, where Robute Guilliman's body was in stasis in its final throes of life, if you like. And the Eldar or Inari witch, what's her name now? I can't remember her name for the life of me. Ivrain it is. The Inari witch, Ivrain, she basically plays a part in bringing Guilliman back to life. So they take him out of stasis. I think she plunges a knife into his heart, although I might be getting 2 stories mixed up there about the craft world of Bealtan being destroyed. Could be. I think maybe I am, actually. So basically, she brings Guilliman back to life, and then Guilliman just jumps up out of his stasis pod, whatever he was kept in, and he starts just grabbing Chaos Marines, and he's got no armour on at this stage or anything. He's just launching them from one side to the other, and he's taken on all the forces of chaos. And then, does he have armour on actually? He might have armour on, I might be lying there. Maybe I'm just having fantasies about a huge, muscly man storming across the battlefield in all his sweaty glory. So he may or may not have armour on there. He's basically reawoken and reunites the Imperium. Well, not that the Imperium was particularly fractured at that point, although to some degree or another the reawakening of Guilliman could have fractured the Imperium more than it was, because the Imperium now, 10,000 years after Guilliman was put into stasis, is completely different to how his father, the Emperor, envisioned it. So it could have caused a massive controversy, but after an audience with the Emperor in his deathless state, after communion with the Emperor, he came out of the Golden Throne Room and basically accepted the Imperium as it was, although he's still, I think, a bit wary of certain aspects of it, like the whole worship of the Emperor as a god kind of a deal. And then, onto the next page, it's Warzone Cadia. But we've already spoken about Warzone Cadia in this issue. But it's just the next 2 pages, basically, give you information about the forces involved on Cadia, and gives you information about the Cadian system as well, and the Kaidan Gate. So the Kaidan Gate is made up of three star systems: Bellis Corona star system, Cadia star system, and the Agrippina star system. And then it details the worlds involved, or the worlds in the Cadia system, the world in the Bellis Corona system, and the Agrippina system. And then on the next page, it gives you a detailed list of all the forces involved in the last defence of Cadia and the final assault upon Cadia by the Chaos Forces. So, onto the Thermic Plasma Regulators, how to build. It's dead easy. You don't really need this how to build section. If you can't build this bit of terrain, I'd say you've got no business building models. It's one of those things, like when I was a kid I used to get Kinder Eggs, Kinder Surprises. So I'd eat the chocolate quickly, and then I'd get to the toy inside. You pop the plastic egg open, and then you get the toy out, and it comes in like anything from 2 to, I don't know, 20 parts. Probably not 20, but you know, some of the kits were quite detailed. Vast majority of the time, I was building them without the instructions, because I like to just figure out how things went together. You know, I used to build Lego as a kid and stuff like that, and just get creative. I've always had that creative aspect to me. So I find this kit ridiculously easy to build. Vast majority of modelers out there will find this ridiculously easy to build. You get one half of the Thermic Plasma Conduit's body, you get the other half of it, you put a bit of glue around one side, stick them together, and you get your platform. I'm looking at the instructions as I say this, after I've done that big rant. Then you get the platform, I'm not going to look at them anymore. And you get the platform, and you put a bit of glue on it, stick it on, and then you get the barrier that goes on the side of the platform, the little fencey bit, you know what I mean. You stick 2 bits of glue on it, you stick that onto the platform, boom, done. You don't need the instructions for this one, but they like to chuck the instructions in, because no doubt, if the instructions weren't in there, people would complain that there was no build instructions for it. However, you know, they stick it in there, that's fine. The Thermic Plasma Regulators painting guide. So the how to paint Thermic Plasma Regulators is next. First off, we start with a nice thick coat of lead belcher. I say a thick coat, just a standard coat really. Rakarth Flesh is next, Retributor Armour, Mephiston Red, Agrax Earthshade, and then at the end of it, you know what? I was quite surprised with this, but it's a nice little paint job at the end of it, you know. I quite like it. I would change it slightly. Although it's a really nice paint job, it's going to look really good on the battlefield without taking away the attention from your models. I'd add a bit of black to where some of these metal panels are. I'd go in with some black there, just to break up the metal. And no doubt the plasma coils, they're in all the other images in the magazine, they're painted with like this blue glow effect. No doubt we'll come back to the plasma coils and add that blue glow effect in the future when we've got some more paints. And they want to teach us a new painting technique in a future issue. I'm pretty sure we'll come back to that at some point to add that. But we'll see. On to the Thermic Plasma Regulators rules. So, the rules section is Terrain 7. Like I suspected and speculated a few issues back, They gave us rules for 2D terrain that's just pictured on the mat in previous issues, but now they're giving us the rules for the actual pieces of terrain. And you can, I was a bit worried you wouldn't be able to step on this platform that they have, but you can step on the platform, and if you step on the platform with infantry units, you benefit from cover as well, which is fantastic. So the cover save, it's any models that are on the platform on the Thermic Plasma Regulator receive the benefit of being in cover, albeit hazardous cover. What does that mean? Well, if you roll a 6 for your saving throw on hazardous cover, basically your saving throw is like your armour save. You gain a cover save of +1. You gave a +1 alteration to your save, I guess you'd call it. I'm sure there's an actual word they use, but I can't remember it and I'm not going to look it up. You get the benefit of the cover is a +1 to your saving throw. So if you roll a 6, that then becomes a 7. And if you roll a 7 on a piece of terrain with a hazardous cover rule, I need to really practice this a few times before I start recording. But if you roll a 6, it gets changed to a 7. That then means you have to roll another dice. If that dice then rolls a 1, that unit that has had the cover save takes a mortal wound. It doesn't have to be one of the models on the platform though. If you've got 3 models on the platform, one at the base of the regulator, then you can get rid of the one at the base of the regulator, because the person taking the wound, the person who controls the unit that's taking the wound, gets to choose which model gets removed. So as long as it's in the same unit, it doesn't even have to be one of the ones benefiting from the cover. And the ladders are what you use to move up and down them, but you measure the full distance. And other than that, other units. So they show a nice picture here of the Mephitic Blight Hauler just hiding behind the Thermic Plasma Regulator. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean it benefits from cover. You have to be on the platform to benefit from the cover. Power Surge is the mission. Mission 27, Power Surge, and it's all about fighting over the Thermic Plasma Regulators. Fancy that, eh? So the Death Guard are moving into the Mechanicus city of Kaidan. Is it Kaidan? I've forgotten. I'm gonna say Kaidan. Kalon it is, isn't it? Kaidan's a name. Kalon's not. It's Kalon. So the Death Guard are moving into the Mechanicus city of Kalon, and they want to hand it over to the Dark Mechanicus to, the Chaos Mechanicus forces, to let them corrupt all the machinery and the guns that are being built and the weapons and the war machines that are being built, corrupt them with demonic energies. But in order to do that, they need to switch on the power first, and they need control of the Thermic Plasma Regulators. So the Ultramarines are there, ready to defend the Thermic Plasma Regulators. The Death Guard forces are attacking. And the armies involved: Lord Felthius, his tainted cohort, a Chaos Rhino, 5 Plague Marines and a Foul Blightspawn, all for the Death Guard. The Space Marines are the Primaris Chaplain, 5 Intercessors, 3 Aggressors, 3 Hellblasters and 2 Inceptors. The Death Guard forces don't deploy, but the Space Marines have got a 6-inch deployment zone on one side of the battlefield. They're the defenders. The Death Guard are the attackers, so they can deploy one of 2 ways: either from the end of the road, as it shows on the map there, or they can also deploy via deep strike from a teleportarium. The deployment zone for the Space Marines, as I said, is 6 inches at the other end of the battlefield. Other than that, the Death Guard player takes a first turn, and then if you eliminate the enemy warlord, you get 1 victory point. The objective markers are the Thermic Plasma Regulators, and they're each worth 3 victory points. So it's a maximum of 7 victory points. If one side gets 1 Thermic Plasma Regulator, the other side gets the other Thermic Plasma Regulator, then it's in the balance, isn't it? It's 3-3. So you've got to try and kill your opponent's warlord, really, as well. Aim everything you have at your opponent's warlord just to gain that advantage. And then, onto the back page. What are we getting next week? We already know. We're getting the paints, the Lead Belcher refill, and the Necron compound. Hopefully we'll learn a bit more dry brushing with dry paints next week. And then the following week, what are we getting? We're getting the Potato Head Men. These kits are quite old. They're one of the older Space Marine kits that are in production now, and it's the Space Marine Scouts. I've not already said, have I? I've just called them potato head men, but they've got such ugly heads, these guys, and ugly expressions on the faces. They've got stupid ears. They've got stupid visors going across the faces. I'm not a fan of these models, but there is a way to improve them just doing head swaps. So if you've got any spare heads, because certain kits in this come with 2 head options, couple that spring to mind, the Librarian, the Primaris Apothecary I think does, the Primaris Chaplain I think does. If you've got any spare heads, I'd swap them for these Scout heads. Maybe shave off the bottoms so they fit in there a bit better than if they just stick straight on. Or maybe you need to add a little bit onto the bottom of them. I don't know. See how they look when you try it. But yeah, definitely swap those out. But it's a new kit, isn't it? That's all I've got for you this week, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Oh, before I go, don't forget to check out the Hobby Corner, because he's going to be building and painting all the models you get with Conquest. The last one I think I saw him having built and painted was, I think it was the Redemptor Dreadnought, so I wonder what he's going to be building next. Check him out in the link in the description below. I might put one up there as well, we'll see. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the battlefield.